Hi everybody, so today we're going to be talking about how parathyroid hormone helps your body absorb calcium from the intestines. But before we do, we have to talk about how we make vitamin D, because vitamin D is needed to do this. So parathyroid hormone kind of has an indirect effect, which we'll get into. So let's go ahead and take a look, and here's the thing, is you have your skin, and in your skin you have something called 7-dehydrocholesterol. Okay, so you have 7-dehydrocholesterol. Now, what's going to happen is you have UV rays that come from the sun, and what the UV rays do is they irradiate the 7-dehydrocholesterol, all right? So, and they're going to cause it to be converted into something called cholecalciferol. All right, now cholecalciferol is a really long word, so we're going to just call it CCF. That's cholecalciferol. Now the cholecalciferol is going to enter into the bloodstream. And when it enters the bloodstream, it's going to go to the liver. And when it gets to the liver now, something's going to happen. So let's look at what's going to happen here if I go like this. So now we are in the liver, right? And the liver is going to have an enzyme, which we're going to call 25-hydroxylase. Okay, so we got 25-hydroxylase. This is an enzyme. And now that 25-hydroxylase is going to convert that CCF into 25-cholecalciferol. All right, and let's go like this. Let's just call this HCCF for short, okay? So now what's going to happen? This is also still in the bloodstream. This is going to go down to the kidney, and specifically, it's going to go to the proximal convoluted tubule, and the cells in there are going to have an effect on this. So let's talk about the effect they're going to have, because there's two different effects that can occur. If my calcium levels are low, I am going to get an increase in parathyroid hormone. If I get an increase on parathyroid hormone, it's going to have an effect on these cells, and it's going to cause them to make something called 1-alpha hydroxylase. Okay, so I get 1-alpha hydroxylase. Now, the 1-alpha hydroxylase now is going to convert this 25-hydroxycholecalciferol into 125-dihydroxycholecalciferol. All right, let's just go like this. Let's just call this DHCCF, okay? So it's going to convert it into that, okay? Now, here's the thing though. Let's say my calcium levels are okay, and I don't need to have more calcium. Well, what's going to happen in that case now is we would actually get a decrease in PTH, right? So if my calcium levels went up, I would get, let me use a different color here. I would get a decrease in PTH, and then what that's going to do is that's going to convert this 25-hydroxycholecalciferol, it's going to convert this, let's go like this, into 24-25, and then I'm just going to say HCCF or DHCCF, okay? So it's going to convert into that, and then this is basically inactive. It doesn't really do a whole lot of anything, okay? So that's what's going to happen if my calcium levels go down. But we're more concerned about this. So now I got this here, and by the way, that's a big long word, so we're going to also call it something else, and I'm going to call this calcitrol. Okay, so this is calcitrol, and now this is the active form of vitamin D. Let's go back real quick, because right here where I said I had CCF, CCF is also known as vitamin D3, but that doesn't really do a whole lot. We got to convert this into an active form of vitamin D. So we're going to be talking about this now here. This now is going to go over to the duodenum in the small intestine. All right, so let's take a look at what's going to happen here. All right, it's going to be over this way. I'm going to move this camera over just a little bit, and hopefully I can keep it from shaking too much. And let's go right about there. If I go right like that. So if I come over here again, we have our calcitrol. I know you can't see it right now, but we had our calcitrol. which went into the small intestine, right, into the duodenum of the small intestine. And let's look what's going to happen now. So if we go like this, right here, it looks like there's an earthquake going on. There's not, it's just me moving the camera. But now what I'm going to do is in the duodenum, I am going to draw part of this. Remember, we have a brush border in there. So here's a portion of my duodenum, okay? And then we have the opposite side. Remember, this is like a tube, right? So then we have the opposite side, right? And this is the opposite side. This is going to be the lumen. Okay, this is the lumen of the small intestine. And then I'm going to take a cross section of this. So let's take a cross section right here. And I'm going to take one cell. We call this enterocytes, right? So I'm going to blow one of these up right here. And I'm going to make it look larger. All right, so this is one cell right here. All right. Okay, so now what's going to happen is this over here, and it's probably going to be a little cattywampus, not too bad. So what's going to happen here is this is going to be my apical membrane. Remember, the apical membrane faces towards the lumen, and then the basal membrane, which I have over here, is going to be towards the body. So this is my basal membrane, this is my apical membrane, and now I'm going to have my cholecystral. Okay, and now that's going to enter into this cell. Now remember, this is going to act kind of like a steroid, so it's not going to need a receptor to get in there. Okay, so now it's inside the cell. So now inside the cell, I'm going to draw the nucleus here, and inside the nucleus of this, I'm going to have my DNA. Okay, so now what's going to happen is this is going to come down and it's going to come into the nucleus. So here it is in the nucleus. And then once it's in the nucleus, there's receptors inside of here. And these, we're going to call these vitamin D receptors, okay? So this is my vitamin D receptor. Okay, that's my vitamin D receptor right there. And then what's going to happen is once that binds to the receptor, I'm going to have another receptor also bind to this. And we're going to call this our retinoid X receptor. Okay, and now we'll just RXR for short. And now that's going to bind to this. Okay, now this here is going to go down and they are going to bind onto the DNA. Remember, this is my DNA right here. Okay, so they're going to bind onto the DNA, right? If I go like this, and let me just draw this real quick. This is my DNA, or my vitamin D receptor portion with the vitamin D on it. And then my RXR portions over here. And then what they're going to do is they're going to activate this, and they're going to cause this to basically go on. It's going to open up. It's going to send mRNA over to the ribosome. The ribosome is going to go, and it's going to make proteins, and it's going to turn this into something. So what's it going to turn this into? Well, eventually we are going to end up with something called, it's a calcium ion channel, which we're going to call TRPV6. Okay, and that's going to be my calcium ion channel right here. All right, this is my TRPV6. So if I come back over here now, I'm going to turn this into my TRPV6. Now I'm just showing one. Don't forget, this is going to happen to a lot of cells, but we're going to increase the number of these. And because we increase the number of these now, when I have calcium coming through here, and remember, it's all over. It can be down here too. Calcium's now going to be more likely to diffuse into the cell. So I'm going to put it down here, right? And now calcium's going to come into the cell right there. So now I have calcium inside. All right, now I have calcium inside. Now, if you recall, what's going to happen is calcium is going to bind with calcium binding proteins, right? It's going to bind with calcium binding proteins called calbindins. And in this case, it's going to bind onto a calcium binding protein 3, or calbindin 3, is going to be able to hold 4 calciums. So now we've taken this out of the intestines. Now we want to get it into the body up here. So how are we going to do that? Well, this is going to be transported and it's going to come over here. And if you recall, in our basal membrane, we have something called calcium ATPase, or the calcium pump. It's also known as PMCA1B. Okay, it's also, like I said, it's going to be calcium ATPase is going to be here, or we can just call it the calcium pump. So what's going to happen now is my calcium is going to leave through here and enter into the body, right? But recall that what we want to do is we want to keep this electroneutral, so I'm going to have two hydrogens come in, right? And if you also recall, what's going to happen is we actually have to go, we're actually going to have to pump this out, so this is going to require ATP to come in, and it's going to turn into ADP, okay? So it's going to require energy, and then remember, it goes to the mitochondria, it just goes around the circle and keeps using it. All right, so that's it for how our bodies are going to absorb calcium using parathyroid hormone. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. I'm going to leave the screen up here for just a minute. Let me see if I can move this, get a little bit more of that in there. So, thanks for watching.